Good morning, Richie. Buenos días, Richie.
Buenos días. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for coming. Thank you for coming to the class. We have this large community of teens, olders, and elders.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
So, muchas gracias, profesor. Tenemos esta comunidad. I'm going to translate you and dialogue with you. Thank you for your time. First of all, we would love to ask you if you can do a short introduction about what is contemplative neuroscience. I know you was yesterday with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Thank you for your contribution to the science.
Thank you. Very happy to
Sí.
contribute. So contemplative neuroscience is really the melding of ancient contemplative traditions for training the mind and for cultivating well-being with modern neuroscience, which emphasizes the plasticity of the brain. So the melding of these two great traditions is very powerful because it gives us a deeper understanding from a scientific perspective of how mental training, mind training, can actually induce changes in the brain, which can then sustain well-being.
Thank you. I'm going to translate. Le pregunta al profesor si nos puede introducir qué es la neurociencia contemplativa y cómo la neurociencia contemplativa dice es la mezcla de dos tradiciones. Es la mezcla de la tradición india contemplativa con el entrenamiento de la mente desde la perspectiva neurocientífica. Y desde luego estas dos tradiciones lo que procuran es el desarrollo del bienestar. Y dentro del bienestar y de la neurociencia, un elemento fundamental que es la neuroplasticidad del cerebro. La mezcla de esas dos tradiciones, de esas dos ciencias, se fundamentan en cómo el entrenamiento de la mente induce cambios en el cerebro. And I would love to ask you, who was the first who was interested just in this aspect of the contemplative neuroscience? Tell us a little bit about the history. How does it arise? What happened in the beginning? It was a beginning?
Well, sort of. I think really the first scientist to embrace this possibility was Francisco Varela, the great Chilean neurobiologist who came from Chile, worked most of his career in Paris. Francisco was a serious meditation practitioner and also a very well-trained neurobiologist. And he brought those worlds together. And one of the ideas that he promoted was something that he called neurophenomenology. And neurophenomenology was really about looking at the neural correlates of experience.
So, el primero que habló de la neurociencia contemplativa, y si hubo un principio, desde luego, fue Francisco Varela, el renombrado neurobiólogo chileno, que vivió mucho tiempo en Chile, pero que desarrolló su carrera básicamente en París. Francisco era un gran meditador, pero también un neurobiólogo, que habló de un concepto muy interesante que es la neurofenomenología y cómo esta afecta a los neurocorrelatos. Do you feel that Francisco, because he was a meditator, he can get access to another perspective, another view of the science?
Yes, another view, and one of the central issues in neurophenomenology, as he described it, was that we need to have observers who are trained to observe their own mind. If we just take people with no training and ask them to observe their mind, it would be like a wine taster who has never had any experience tasting wine. You wouldn't want to rely on that. You need to cultivate expertise in observing your own mind. And so what he argued was that we need trained contemplatives to observe their mind, report on their experience, and then we would find more meaningful neural correlates of that experience from this careful observation.
Okay, so Francisco, le pregunto la relación de Francisco sobre la meditación. Desde luego la mirada de Francisco sobre la meditación era en el sentido de que necesitamos observarla propiamente y una persona no puede observar su propia mente sin tener un entrenamiento apropiado. No podríamos, por ejemplo, dice Richard en una analogía, degustar un buen vino si no fuéramos capaces de educar el paladar para apreciar los sabores. De la misma manera, observar y cultivar la mente necesita un entrenamiento, un adiestramiento contemplativo. Y eso lo vio Francisco en la observación de los neurocorrelatos. Richie, we have with teenagers, what is a neurocorrelate? You can explain something in an easy way for the beginner's mind?
So a neural correlate is simply, we measure the brain using one of many techniques that we have today for measuring the human brain. It could be measuring the brain electrical signals. It could be putting a person in a brain scanner, like an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging scanner. All of these are different kinds of methods for measuring the brain. And if we have people that we are testing and we measure their brain and they report an experience, we can see if there is a change in brain activity that is consistently related to their experience. And that is a neural correlate. So if someone, for example, reported that they were paying attention and had a lot of clarity and vividness in their attention, and we found a consistent change in the brain that was associated with that, that would be a neural correlate of this kind of vivid attention.
Le pregunto al doctor Davidson sobre que nos diga una definición sobre los neurocorrelatos para los que tenemos una mente de principiante. Los neurocorrelatos tienen que ver con medir el cerebro de distintas maneras. Lo medimos con señales eléctricas, lo medimos con el MRI, con resonancia. Hay diferentes métodos para medir la actividad del cerebro. Y esas medidas que tomamos del cerebro, lo que observamos es que reportan y se correlacionan con actividades de la experiencia, y esas actividades de la experiencia podemos prestar atención a cómo, por ejemplo, se desarrolla la atención, la claridad, la consistencia, y observar cómo esas experiencias se expresan en el cerebro en formatos de neurocorrelatos. Thank you, Richie. Let's go back to Varela. So in the beginning was Varela?
For contemplative neuroscience, yes, I would say so. Before Varela, there were a few papers published on the neural correlates of meditation that were, one was published by Indian scientists with certain kinds of Vedanta or Hindu practices. There was also a paper published by Japanese scientists on a form of Zen meditation. Yes, but there was not much other than maybe 2 or 3 papers of that sort before Varela came on the scene. And he himself really didn't do very much on meditation research-wise until the very end of his career, but he wrote a lot about it. So only at the end of his career did he actually do research on it.
So, le pregunta al profesor quién estaba en el principio, si era solo Varela o alguien más. Muy pocos papeles científicos habían sobre algunos de los neurocorrelatos, algo de un señor indio sobre la tradición Vedanta, algún japonés que escribió algo sobre la meditación Zen, quizás 2 o 3 papeles científicos. Y de hecho Varela no hizo muchos papeles científicos, sino más bien un habeas corpus filosófico. What is the neurophenomenology and how this is related with the contemplative neuroscience?
Well, the neurophenomenology is, it's a method, and the method is to measure the brain and at the same time have people report on their experience. And the project then is to examine the association or the correlation between the report of their experience and changes in the brain. That is neurophenomenology. Contemplative neuroscience is a broader field, and how these two are related is the following. In order to promote or in order to achieve accurate descriptions of the mind, of what's going on in the mind, we need to be trained. If you ask an ordinary person on the street to interrogate his mind, they will often just tell you beliefs and stories. They will not have the skills to report in a very nuanced way about what's going on in their mind. For that, we need contemplative training.
La pregunta es, ¿qué es la neurofenomenología y qué relación guarda con las neurociencias contemplativas? La neurofenomenología es un método que se encarga de promover y describir los fenómenos de la mente, pero para comprender eso tenemos que tener entrenamiento de la mente. Imagínate que le preguntas a una persona por la calle qué es la mente y te va a responder como un conjunto de creencias o de hábitos que tiene aprendidos, pero más bien que es la mente es un conjunto de habilidades que pasa por expresar, y ese conjunto de habilidades que pasa por expresar es la neurociencia contemplativa exactamente. So, I have wrote from you in the past something about what is contemplative neuroscience. I remember very well your writing about how you become a contemplative neuroscience. Tell us your history about how you become in contact with Francisco. Do you remember this encounter, and how was that, Richie?
Yes, I very much remember all of that early history. I was very fortunate when I was a graduate student to meet people who had a practice of meditation, and they were warm-hearted, they were kind, they were the kind of people I wanted to spend more time with, and they were not my professors in graduate school. They were people that I met on the outside. And I learned that they all had in common a practice of meditation. And so this led me, after my second year of graduate school, this was many, many years ago, in 1974, to make my first trip to India, where I got a little taste of more intensive meditation practice and went on retreats. At the same time, I had the strong conviction that the mind was really the most important thing to be studying, because it's really responsible for everything, the quality of our mind. And I recognized that in the West, in order to study the mind, you also needed to study the brain, that was a pathway for studying the mind. So I began to study the brain in my academic work, and in my personal life, I was studying meditation and very convinced that this path of meditation was very important for psychology and neuroscience, but my professors were not very welcoming at the time. And I became very much what I've called a closet meditator. There are very few people that knew I was interested in this. And then I first met Francisco soon after I left graduate school in the early 1980s. He was working in New York City, and I was near New York City, and we both ended up working in the same laboratory at NYU Medical School. And that's where I first met him, and we did an experiment together to measure the duration of a perceptual moment. That's how I first met Francisco.
Thank you. Le preguntamos a Richard cómo empezó él, cómo empezó con la meditación y si recuerda la primera vez que encontró a Francisco, cómo fue ese encuentro. Bueno, mi encuentro con la práctica de la meditación se remonta a cuando era un estudiante y me estaba graduando. Y ahí empecé a entrar en contacto con personas que meditaban, eran muy amables, eran muy buenas, y yo quería pasar mucho tiempo con ellas. Y da el caso que ninguno de ellos eran mis profesores, eran justamente lo opuesto. Entonces me interesé por la meditación y hice mi primer viaje a la India. En aquel momento yo empecé con la meditación y con retiros en la manera clásica. Tuve muy claro desde joven que quería estudiar la mente y sobre todo cómo funcionaban las cualidades de la mente, porque para mí reconocer la mente era muy importante y lo que Occidente reconocía como reconocer la mente era estudiar el cerebro, así que decidí estudiar el cerebro de manera académica y mantener mi práctica meditativa más en lo privado para estudiar la mente. Los profesores no estuvieron muy contentos con mis decisiones, pero yo me decidí y seguí perseverando en la clásica meditación. Cuando conocí a Francisco Varela fue en Nueva York. Francisco y yo estuvimos compartiendo en NYU, en la escuela médica, un experimento sobre la percepción y el movimiento.